Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Faster Masters Rowing Radio, where having a rowing coach only makes you better. Following a program gives you a true pathway to becoming a confident sculler who's respected by your peers. You can become the athlete you want to row with. I'm Rebecca Caro, and I am joined by Marlene Royal.
Hello, Rebecca, and hello, Faster Masters. Nice to be here.
It's very nice. And do you know, oh, look, we already have a watcher. Cece says, Merry Christmas from Whidbey with a little Christmas tree. Merry Christmas back to you.
Yes, thank you, Cece.
So how's your week been, Marlene?
Really good. I got out on my cross-country skis 3 or 4 times already. So that was great. That's a nice kind of transition time. And I think, that was my fun for the week. I'm working on the holiday challenge. I still have a few more meters to row, but I've done pretty well with the Concept 2 holiday challenge as well. So I've been kind of focusing on physical fitness and catching up on end of the year training stuff, programs, correspondence.
We all have that. So for me, we're obviously deeply into summer rowing, and the green screen photo for the week. This is my 8. We had a dinner to celebrate that we'd won the head of the fish. And Ali, who's on the right of the picture, made this lovely cake that says we won. And you can't quite see it, but right across the diagonal are lots of tiny little fish, each pointing, sitting one behind the other with a little silver eye, and then a coxswain fish, which is sitting facing the other way with a little red eye. And then we got this trophy, which actually I'm going to have to turn off my green screen because otherwise you won't be able to see the trophy because it's green. But can you believe this? We did their virtual regatta and they mailed us this beautiful trophy, which says head of the fish and has a little crazy fish on it with out of his mouth is coming like, I think this is.
It looks like a beer mug. Yeah. That's very upstate New York. Yeah.
Oh, okay. With lots of mad Halloween stuff, because of course it was during Halloween that we did it. And we had a lot of fun doing the actual race because before and after we got contacted by a bunch of Australians who were women's 8 from Brisbane who were also doing the same race. And so there was a bit of kind of Aussie versus Kiwi kind of rivalry, Every country has another country that they like to race.
Well, if you ever have a chance to come and really race the head of the fish in Saratoga Springs, New York, it's an excellent course on Fish Creek. It's a really, really nice course, especially if you're a single sculler. It's one of those, really nice courses to steer. Good water. Water's almost always good there. But it tends to be at the end of October. So sometimes it can be already pretty cool up in upstate New York, like frost on the windows in the morning type of thing. But it's and Saratoga's a really, really nice Victorian town to visit as well.
There you go. There's a recommendation. And now let's just run through the sponsors that we have for this week. So we have the Rowing Tales Book 2020, which is my annual attempt to curate and collect a whole load of different anecdotes. Here we go. All about the sport of rowing. Those 3 are the past years. The current year's book, my one hasn't arrived yet. That's because of Christmas post. But you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Row Perfect web store. And it's a collection by 50 different people of all sorts of fun little anecdotes, stories, happenings, things to make you laugh, things to make you cry, and some very moving stories, including a fine one by a gentleman called Henry Law, who fell out of his single when he was a student at rowing at Bath in the UK and couldn't figure out how to get back into his single while he could still stand on the bottom of the river, and had the marvelous idea of taking his oar and wedging it up a drainage pipe, which was sort of draining the fields next to the lake, so that he had stability, which was great. And he got back into the boat and then realized he was wedged and couldn't move. And you're going to have to buy the book to read the story and find out how Henry got out of the drainage pole with his oar stuck up a drain. And our second sponsor is the Rowing Retailer Directory, which is where you should go to find out any rowing retailer, to get any product of any sort, from software through to ergs, from the local person who's distributing popular oars in your country to the local rep for boats. It's all on rowing.chat/retailer. Go find anyone, anywhere, and tell us if we're missing somebody, please. Now we have another watcher from Japan.
Great.
Sorry, this one. They say they're from Japan. And then they put a message up, but I'm really sorry. I don't read Japanese, so I don't know what it says, but it has a very cute love heart at the end.
We hope that's good.
We hope that's good. And Deirdre O'Hara is in Hollywood, Florida, escaping from the west of Ireland winter.
That is a very nice place to row. I have done coaching and clinics in Hollywood, and they have a fantastic West Lake where there's no motorboats. They have a really, really nice stretch of water.
Well, Deirdre, enjoy. And how fortunate that you can travel, because I heard that an awful lot of countries have banned travelers from the UK. Of course, you're from Ireland, not the UK, but brilliant that you can travel, and please stay safe and stay well. Now, we've got a really fun year-end regatta to tell you guys about, which is on Regatta Central, and it's here. It's called Rowing from 2020. Mm-hmm. And the guys have conceived this as a virtual event to send the year off right and to provide us with one last challenge. The distance is 2021, so 2021 meters, and you have to enter and complete your race before midnight on January 3rd. And they have T-shirts and medals, which you can buy, which is cool, and you can win a speed coach. And there's the little T-shirt with the guy crying.
Oh dear.
It's too fun. So that's on Regatta Central, and you can see that if you want to, regattacentral.com/regatta, and you'll find that, and I'll put the link in the show notes as well. So hopefully that'll be a super fun way to fetch out the year. And we have another live watcher from Casper, Wyoming. Now we know who this is, don't we?
We have a suspicion, yes.
We do, yeah. Hi, Casper, Wyoming. And Cece says she has signed up already for the year-end challenge. So
I thought Cece was taking an active rest period. That doesn't sound like an active rest period.
There's 10 days between now and the
That's
3rd.
True. You can get rested, Cece, between now and then. This is your taper.
This is your. I love it. It's our last podcast of the year. And although I am very keen to say good riddance to 2020 and roll on 2021, I thought it might be quite nice just to do a little rollback and think about the things that have happened in the year that we've been doing here on the podcast. So, Marlene, what was your favorite topic that we've discussed?
Well, one that I liked a lot when we went back to our lockdown podcasts and we started going weekly was when we talked about setting up a home gym. And that's something that I think is really important now, because a lot of our listeners and a lot of our faster masters are still now again having to train from home. And it's really important to keep up your strength training during the winter months, even if you're on the water, if you're living somewhere where you're on the water. It's really important to keep up with that strength training at least twice a week. So having the right battery of equipment at home so that you can do that. This includes having a few kettlebells, having a set of dumbbells. I'd like to include TRX straps if you can, because you can do so much with TRX straps and kettlebells, and having a nice yoga mat, which you can do body weight exercises on. And if you have a physio ball or a Swiss ball, we old timers used to call them, having a physio ball is really, really good for doing all kinds of core exercises and balance, and it's interesting, and a good set of elastic bands. You can do a ton of strength work at home without even having to get into really, really heavy weight. You can be very effective. So I always like to drive that one home. And it seems to be one that I've been talking to people about a lot this week, because some states in the US and provinces in Canada are in lockdown again. So a lot of people are having to return home to train. So we want to keep up on those things that help us stay in our routine.
Definitely do. And just as a reminder that if you are stuck at home without a training program, way back in April, we published an article called Home Rowing Training During COVID-19. And the link's on the screen, and I will put it in the show notes as well. On this page are 2 training program options. One is a freebie, which basically gives you a week, which you can just cycle through. And this was, of course, written in April when we did not know how long this was going to last. So if you haven't got a program, definitely give yourself some focus, because we all train better when we know what it is that we're doing. So it wasn't one of my favorites of the year, but I just thought that if you're doing the perfect home rowing gym, you're going to need the perfect home rowing training program as well. Now we have another visitor from Australia. Tanya is with us in Ocean Grove. Doesn't that sound lovely?
Yes, it does.
Hi, Tanya. Nice to see you again. And I'm going to pick out my favorite of the year. Was an episode we did called Hip Mobility for Masters. And I liked this one particularly because it's a perennial topic. It comes up over and over, and it's so necessary for so many people. It doesn't matter if you've been rowing for years or if you're completely new to the sport. Without hip mobility, you lose about 1/3 of your power in the rowing boat, because your hips and your glutes are the things that link your back to your legs. And so without good hip mobility, you are nothing. And if you are aging, as we all are, we all need a regular reminder about hip mobility. So that's my pick of the year, was the episode on hip mobility for masters. It really came home to me, interestingly, Marlene, when we were out this morning in our 8, and we have, quite a lot of people who row the 8. And this morning it was 6 women and 2 guys. And the coxswain called us to really focus on the rock over, and particularly a focus on getting your handle past your knees before breaking your knees and coming up the slide. And it was really interesting. You know how when you've got that sort of a canny coxswain who absolutely knows their stuff, says something and then goes, there, you see, that proves it. Exactly that. He said, holding your knees, get your handle past your knees before you come up the slide. And he goes, and literally the next stroke, the boat was absolutely level.
It really works, doesn't it?
It works. It's like, amazing. I am a genius.
One of my favorite quotes of the year was, when in doubt, do what your coach said in the first place.
That's a t-shirt slogan.
Yeah, it is, definitely. And it works. It's true. It's like, oh, true. Wow, the boat really goes, everybody wants to cheat. When hands come away, I call it the accordion, hands and knees come up at the same time. You must separate those motions. They must, stable body, dead slide, separate those motions, just do it,
And when in doubt,
right, do what your coach said. Right. Another one on the water is just stop doing that. That's very, very helpful coaching, right? Just stop doing that, please.
Hello to Glenda from Wilmington in North Carolina.
Yes,
there we go.
glad that she is here.
Nice to see you. And a comment from another person who hasn't put a name. That's because it's hip to be square. Boom, boom, dish. That's so cool. Excellent. So our 2020 has been what it has been. And I do feel we'll never wipe the slate clean, but I do think we've all actually had some good learnings from this year. And I want to look forward to what's going to be coming up for next year. So during this year, we have added probably 3 times the number of subscribers to this podcast. We have added 2 to 3 times the number of paying customers on the Faster Masters program. And we are really grateful to you guys, showing up week after week. When we went to weekly, do you remember that back in April? That was a COVID thing. And we've really enjoyed doing the weekly podcast, but we also know that without an audience, it doesn't have the same pizzazz.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
You guys who are watching and listening, can you put into the comments and tell us one thing that was really positive for you this year in the context of rowing that we could all perhaps learn from and take forwards together? Because obviously my hip mobility matters to me, and Marlene's perfect home rowing gym matters to her. But actually, there's so much that I learn just from listening to you guys, the things that you say, the things that you ask, the observations, whether it is hip to be square, which is quite funny, but so what have you got that we could all be looking at and thinking about? And just tell us one thing that was really positive for you. So we know that a ton of people got into singles for the first time this year.
That was huge. That was huge.
You had a class, didn't you, Marlene, of all single scullers that you managed to coach throughout the summer?
Oh yeah, I had only singles. Actually, the only person who has a double here is me. So everybody else is in singles. Yeah, and I had many in my master's group were new. Were people who I started from day one this year who have continued and now gone on to buy boats, and they're in it for the long term, which is really cool. And but the people's questions on the podcast are interesting to us because it shows us, like, what are you curious about? What do you want to learn about? What are you thinking about? What's on your mind? Those are the kinds of things that we want to talk about on the podcast, because if one person has the question, 9 other people have the question.
For sure. So here's the first one of the answers from Alex Sparks. He says, the most important thing I've learned over the years in a world that constantly talks about training and training programs is how important recovery is.
It's the other training category, because without recovery, you don't have adaptation. So, and I know that we've touched on this subject during the course of the year, but it's not during the workout that you get into shape. It's after the workout when you give your body the ability to recover and adapt to the load, because you're always managing load. You have the workload and you have the recovery load. So you have to give your cells time to adapt to the workload that you've just done. And that's what changes the fitness level. So, cutting rest short, or if your resting heart rate is high in the morning and you're starting to run down, or you're just, check in with yourself. And first of all, just first see how you feel. If you're dragging your butt, that probably means something. And, when in doubt, rest. It's okay to take an extra day off. It's much better than triggering something that's going to cause you to take more time off, or to get ill or something like that. So managing rest from day to day, as well as within your workout, is important. So there's sort of micromanagement and macro management of recovery.
And Glenda has said, I've learned to lean on my own resilience and to press on. Now, resilience, I think it ought to be the word of the year, although I strongly suspect I'll pick pandemic, because I know so many people, and I'm guessing we've all had moments where we've really felt lacking in purpose, focus, and recognizing that resilience is so much more than just the ability to keep going in the face of adversity, because it's physical as well as mental for me.
Yeah, and there's still challenges ahead. I mean, we still have things that are going to go on, and as trite as it sounds, you really just have to go one stroke at a time. If you can stay focused on the future and do the things that you need to do to manage stress levels. If stress levels are starting to get high, check in with yourself. Are you getting enough sleep? Changes like paying attention to your sleep, making sure that you're eating the right food. These things are really, really important. Not going too heavy on the drinking over the holidays. That generally doesn't necessarily help the stress level overall, because then you're going to be tired and maybe a little bit of brain fog and things like that. But these are the kinds of things. Check in with yourself and do what you can. Everybody knows those little things that help you feel better, even if it's just going for a walk for 15 minutes by yourself in the forest or around the block or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't take all that much to really just settle down and feel better and kind of, get that stress under control. So, baby steps, just take baby steps.
And here we have another one from Deirdre, who says, I started working on keeping my feet in contact, and I realized I was turning up my toes. When I control that, the boat sits that much better. So true, Deirdre, because without your big toe, you can't stand on one leg. You fall over. Your big toe is really important for balance. And that's not in a rowing boat. That's just walking. I don't know if you do this, but my doubles partner and we've been practicing our warm up with feet out.
Mm-hmm. I row feet out all the time. Yeah.
Such a good discipline for us to try and keep the length, keep our feet in contact while rowing square blades. And of course, early morning, and you're sort of, you're still getting going, getting into the zone and stuff. So well done, Deirdre. That sounds like an absolutely brilliant exercise. And I'm really happy you've made that positive discovery. And this person, who sadly doesn't say what their name is, says, many of my masters rowers have overcome their fear of rowing the single and become the better rowers because of that.
Absolutely. That's one of the big pluses of this year, for sure.
Yeah.
Getting into those small boats and, having a little bit of fun with it too. It's different when you're in a boat by yourself.
It is. And, it's all your fault. That's the other thing. It's like, I went wrong. Oh, well, can't blame anyone else. It was me. Mm-hmm. And well done to you, coach. I'm guessing you're a coach, for, supporting your athletes as they get into singles and overcoming, as you say, the fear. And a lot of masters feel the need, adults generally feel the need to control their entire situation. And often that translates into tension in a rowing boat. So overcoming tension and knowing how to make the boat stable in your safe position, which, if you don't know, I teach is legs straight, arms straight, blades on the water. So if you have a wobble, go into your safe position and the boat will sit level. Cece, I learned from doing virtual races the importance of the mental training of preparing to race, eating right, dressing right, doing starts, and then completing a race. And I'm grateful for the availability of virtual races this year to keep that mental aspect in my training.
I think the virtual races, for the people who took advantage of them, were really beneficial this year. You know, like for some of these reasons that Cece mentions, the Premier League, for example, Erg Race League. You know, one of my rowers said, "Whoa, you know, I just sort of joined this team on a whim, but wow, it really shifted me into action, and it became this like huge motivating factor of like, man, there is competition out there still." You know, I was sort of, you know, losing touch with it, and I do think it's important to stay in touch. If you're a competitive rower and you plan to be focused on competition, you have to stay in touch with the competition. Even if you're saying, okay, this is a long base period, or I don't have any races to go to, I think you'll find if you stay in touch with those virtual races and those challenges, it's going to help you a lot more when you get back into your regular regatta season, because it's a skill. And if you don't do it for a long time, you forget how to do it. And I know that athletes that I've worked with, for example, who only race in the fall, say they only race the head of the Charles, but previously they raced Masters Nationals in the US and then head of the Charles. There was a year when this one athlete skipped Masters Nationals, skipped the sprint season, said, no, I'm just going to focus on the head of the Charles. So there was this long stretch of racing, long stretch of time where there was no racing. And he felt that it was very detrimental to his fall, just not having that sharpness, that alertness of just doing some races over the summer, even if they weren't his high priorities, you still had to be in gear for them. And you know, I think taking advantage of these virtual races now in North America, they're going to be mostly erg, like the Canadian indoors is February 6th or 7th. Crash Bees is March 7th, I believe. You know, those kind of events are really good winter goals.
They totally are. And you're absolutely right. You do forget. And I think it's one of those sort of human base survival things. It's like people say, you know, childbirth, so painful, but then I forget about it afterwards. That actually racing involves pain, and it involves focus, and you put yourself under pressure. And all of those things are definitely worth practicing, you know, even if it's, as you say, a virtual race. You read this one, Marlene.
It says, I have learned that when I row in my single to my highest capability, it's really important to know where that rock island is. There was a big boom and a word of profanity came out of my mouth. Yes, you do have to know where those things are, but at least you didn't get stuck on it. You know, like I heard this story of one guy who was rowing on Lake Lanier, which is where the Olympics were, the Atlanta Olympics. They rowed on Lake Lanier, and it was Christmas Day, and there was this great big styrofoam block in the middle of the lake with a Christmas tree on it. Well, this scholar, he ran right into that styrofoam block and put his bow into that block for about a foot. And you know what? He couldn't get out. And he was stuck in his single, not able to get his bow out of that cube. And Paul Mildy, who is the builder of Pinert boats, this man happened to be rowing a Pinert, said that, you know, if you hit something soft, you're going to go way into it. Whereas if you hit something hard, like Richard's Rock, you're going to bounce, or a bridge, you're going to bounce off it. But you hit something soft, like a soft shore or a styrofoam block, and you're going to go into it. Well, this man was out there for hours and hours until somebody realized that he was stuck, because he didn't have a cell phone or anything like that at that time, until somebody realized he was stuck in the styrofoam cube and he couldn't. It was cold, you know, and they came and got him finally. But you see what kinds of things can happen.
I need that story for Rowing Tales 2021.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Paul Mildy then who built the Pinert races. Yeah, who it was, and maybe you can get more details. But
my closest one, which I wasn't in the boat, but this is crewmates of mine, they rowed the quad into a reed bed on the edge of our lake. And it's soft, as you say, like a styrofoam cube. And they got themselves so badly wedged, the bowman had to leave her seat and crawl down the deck to try and like lie on it and hold bunches of reeds and push backwards to try and push them out. So they tried like all backing out, but I think maybe one or two people had their oars sort of still amongst the reeds and they couldn't get the boat out.
Oh gosh. It happens.
It happens. Tanya Sutherland, I've learned to overcome my fear of ergs, using them as a tool instead of just for testing and training the brain to stay focused for long periods of time when I usually get bored. Now, I'm going to give you a quick heads up, Tanya. That is our topic for part of the January Faster Masters program, isn't it, Marlene?
Yes.
We're going to be talking about training your brain for concentration training. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you're ahead of the curve. Well done. And so coming up for our future is we definitely want to stick with doing a weekly podcast, but we're going to change the day. So come 2021, we are going to change the day to being a Thursday in the US. So it'll be a Friday in New Zealand and Australia, but Thursday for the rest of the world, for just purely practical reasons that suits our working week. But we hope that that will be accommodatable, if that's a word, in your own personal programs, schedules. Because actually we love having you guys along with the live watching.
Yeah, it's much more fun when people are putting in live comments and questions, because we like to answer questions.
Now, we got a absolutely super remark that was put up on the Masters Rowing International Facebook group this year. It says, I'm looking for guidelines in setting up a team captain for a Masters group. Are there any existing policies and procedures on how to elect, their duties, and communication strategies? Now, I've never been in a club that had a Masters captain. Marlene, have you got any insight into this?
Not really, because I don't either. My club is too small, but I would say go have a nice dinner or get together if you can. And I mean, I know the way we used to do it in university, that people just put in names who they would want as captain, and then whoever there was the most names usually was elected the team captain. I don't remember there being sort of like a choice of three people. I think the team each person individually decided a person who they would nominate, and whoever had the most nominations was usually elected the team captain. But
what did your captain have to do? What?
When I was the captain my senior year in university, and I did a lot of liaison between what the athletes wanted and what the coach wanted. So there was a lot of communication. Like if there was something that wasn't, if there was any kind of miscommunication or something wasn't going smoothly in the team, the captain usually talked to the coach, and we tried to kind of keep things running as smoothly as possible. I actually had to go to a lot of functions, because at that time the women's captains, like from MIT and Northeastern University, we used to meet with like the Boston Women's Council for tea and discuss sort of like, we used to meet like prominent women in Boston and who were businessmen and discuss promoting women's sports and things like that. We had to do those types of things. But I mean, I think mostly you were a leader for the athletes. And if athletes had things that they wanted to talk about, they usually came to the team captain and to talk about them privately, or, that's what my role was like when I was the team captain way back when.
We don't have a captain as such, although Annabelle, who is our president, will tell you that you should never go to the bathroom in the middle of an AGM because you get elected when you're out of the room.
Right.
But we have divided up the day-by-day organizational work to a lot of different people. So there's someone who picks the crews and allocates boats. We've also made a lot of the administration the individual responsibility of the athletes. So you have to sign up to say that you are going to be rowing on that particular session. So we've actually removed, a whole layer of admin there. If you don't sign up, you don't get put in a boat. And it's also been, that actually was very useful in COVID when we had to have a record of everyone in the boathouse at any one time. So we were already doing that. So it was easy for us. So that's pretty good. So you put your name down, and, if you have a request, you want to row in a particular crew, with particular people, or please, I want to do sweep, not sculling, people can do that. But we don't have a lot of things that a captain as such needs to do. We do have someone who is a coordinator between the different training groups in the club, because obviously we have a senior team and a junior team and a masters team. And that's handy, except for this morning when we came down the club and found that they'd loaded a whole load of boats on a trailer for their after Christmas camp, not realizing that the masters will be rowing through Christmas.
Well, that'll do it, right? It's a little hard not to row a boat on a trailer, right? So, okay.
Well, we did sort of go and have a look and see whether the riggers were there and whether we could re-rig it and offer to load the trailer a second time, like before they. I kind of suspect they're not going to go to camp until like the 27th or 28th of December. It's like, so why load it on the 22nd of December?
Yeah, really. You have like 4 days of rowing there. But I guess you have to ask what you want your team captain to do, because if you're in the context of a big club, what does the captain, it's a team captain or it's captain of the club. Those could be different functions, because in some clubs, the captain is the person who might do your water test or your safety test for you to go in a single, or from a single move from a recreational boat into a racing single, and test your skills like docking, backing, turning. So there's a captain can play that type of roles, that the person who does the skill testing for you to maybe go from one boat into another boat and be able to, or to take out, a racing boat instead of a wreck boat. So those are some roles, but electing, I would just have somebody, have people nominate people, and then the people nominating have to hopefully decide if they would do it if elected, because you don't want to elect somebody who doesn't want to do it. So, right. And then have an election.
There we go. Straightforward when you know how. Now, back to our earlier topic of positive things that have happened to you this year. This person says, I've also learned that I've been able to get really close to birds on the water. I was within 10 yards of a bald eagle eating its fish meal before it flew off. Wow, that must be so special.
That's nice. We have a bald eagle that lives on our lake that we see quite often. Just nice.
And you must have just a ringside view. That's just stunning, isn't it? We have a lot of swans and Brent geese on our lake at the moment. I counted, I'm not joking this, I counted 90 swans and 30 geese.
Oh my goodness.
And like when it's windy, the swans all gather in one part of the lake so that they can, stay sheltered from the wind. And one of my colleagues fortunately alerted me to that. He said, don't go up there. You won't be able to row through the flock of swans, because half of them are asleep, with their head under their wing, and they're all too close together to squeeze a boat between.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, there you go. I secretly think that the local council probably culls them without telling anybody, but there are so many. There is so much poo on our pontoon in the morning. It's horrid.
Yeah, that's a big job to clean that every morning too.
Well, we put out buckets with rope strung between them, and they just started walking around the back of the rope. It worked really well to begin with.
Then they figure it out.
They're not stupid.
No.
Although, maybe we should all be eating swan for Christmas.
I don't know. The swans are going to raise their eyebrows now or something. Well, it was quite a year. I think as coaches, we learned to be extremely creative, certainly working from a remote platform. We were already creative, but we had to be even more creative. And, I definitely put a few more tools in the toolbox this year, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's really hard to be relentlessly positive. And so, as a coach, I got a lot of energy from athletes telling me positive things and not just complaining. And that for me was my really big learning this year.
Yeah, coaches appreciate it. Sometimes you don't hear from people for a long time, but if once in a while, somebody says, "Wow, thank you, that was really cool," or, "I appreciate you giving me that advice," or that you were helpful, we appreciate it too. It's what we enjoy about our jobs, lives, professions.
Absolutely. So the next time we'll see you guys will be the 14th of January. We'll publicize this in the normal way. If you're listening and you're not yet on our newsletter, please sign up. It's fastermastersrowing.com/newsletter. And that will keep you in touch with all of the good things that we're up to. So this has been Faster Masters Rowing Radio, the very, very last one for 2020. So it's goodbye from me.
And me, but we're already thinking of themes for January.
We've got lots of fun things lined up for you guys. And keep the feedback coming. We really appreciate it.
Please.
Till next time.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.